everyone, how's it going? It's Jessie from b.a.r.e Flower Farm. I'm really excited to bring to you this video. It is actually an interview with fellow flower farmer Haley French. So Haley and her mom co-own Brynhill Flower Farm. They're about 6 hours away from me east, so they're also in the Northeast in Pennsylvania. Now, Haley and I have a lot of similarities in the sense that we are both second-year flower farmers. We are both flower farming part-time. We have full-time jobs, but we also took the Tulip Workshop, which is how we met each other, and we forced tulips for Valentine's Day. Now, Haley and I have been talking through Instagram messages about just our experiences growing certain varieties, even dry storing some of those stems that came earlier, as well as just trying to prolong some of those stems or manipulate light temperature to get the stems to bloom at a certain time. So anyway, I thought this would be a good video because even though we have these similarities, we took a very different approach to how we sold our stems for Valentine's Day. So if you saw my last video, you'll know that I did primarily retail. Basically every single bouquet was direct to consumer. Haley took a completely different approach. She sold directly to florists. And I think that that is really impressive, especially heading into year 2, having been able to sell to florists in year 1. And she's going to talk very deeply about how she did that, how she's selling through a collective, what is a collective, the benefits of a collective, and all that good stuff. So we talk a bit about that. We talk a bit about her background, her setup. For a second-year flower farmer, Haley is definitely a lot bigger than most people going into her second year. She's going to explain her infrastructure, some of the advantages that they had based off of, her mom's background and that kind of stuff. So we're going to get into the weeds with that. And of course, we're also going to talk about number. Haley's also going to talk about how much she sells a stem for, how she looks at her cost per stem, how we think about tulip forcing and the scale that you really need to be able to do in order to achieve some level of profitability. And of course, we talk about our experience with the Tulip Workshop. I think it should be to no one's surprise that we both would recommend the Tulip Workshop to anyone. We swear we're not being paid by anyone to say this. We've all had a good experience, but we also talk about who the Tulip Workshop is a good fit for, considerations you should have if you are thinking about taking it, and who should really not be taking it, right? So we talk a little bit about that in addition to a lot of other stuff related to tulips. So I'm gonna warn you, this video is an hour 15. I thought it was gonna just be 40 minutes. We get into a lot of details. We get into just a conversation about growing and experiences as a first and second year flower farmer. So I hope you enjoy this video. Let us know in the comments if you have any questions, and let's get started. So hey Haley, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so glad to have you on. Absolutely. You're actually my first YouTube interview guest. Yes.
Honored.
Yes. So I'm super excited to talk about tulips, Valentine's Day forcing and everything, but I wanted people to get a bit of background on you. So do you want to introduce yourself and talk a bit about your background, how you got into growing, that kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So hi, I'm Haley. I am the co-founder of Brynhill Flower Farm. We are located in Butler, PA, which is in Western Pennsylvania. We're 40 miles north of Pittsburgh. The flower farm started on our property that my mom owns and I live on. The property of Brynhill, the house was built in 2000. It's on old nursery property, so it's deciduous trees. So if you ever see pictures, there's always lines of trees, and it's because it's old nursery property. My parents, when they built the house, and they met at Penn State in the 80s in the horticulture program. So they're both PA horticulturists, which is awesome. And they built the house while they were operating. My mom was operating a greenhouse production, or greenhouse garden center. And my dad was running a landscape construction company. So they built the house. We've always had gardens, all kinds of orphan plants found their home here. So it was just a beautiful place to grow up. And then I moved away and I did something totally different than ag. My parents actually didn't want me to be in ag or work for them, which is funny because I do now. I'm 29, and I've been working with them since 2016. And, it was kind of like a weird period in my life where I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. What I studied in college wasn't a great fit for me. I was just kind of floating. And then the pandemic happened, and just like everyone else, we all kind of, we're looking for outside things, right? Being outside literally, and then outside of, our usual life. And so I just really leaned into gardening, and my mom and I decided, like, why not start Cut Flower Farm? Try it out. We've been growing forever. We have gardens and garden beds. So it just seemed like, we wanted to do something for ourselves, because we do work together at another company, but having something just for ourselves was really the draw. And then utilizing this property. It's 14 acres. It's beautiful. We have a big house.
Wow.
It's just the two of us, but really letting the property work for us as well, and utilizing that was important.
Yeah. So 14 acres, how much are you, I'm assuming you're not growing on 14 acres.
No, it's probably, so I think we like mow about 7 of it. It's broken up into different parts, different sections. It's on a big hill, hence Brynhill as part of the name, because it is on a hill. So we have one piece above the driveway. What is it, like 200 square feet? That's perennials. And we're going to expand it this year and do some hardy annuals up top as well. And then my main production space is 5,000 feet in the main part of the lawn. And it's attached to an old raised like kitchen garden.
Okay.
That we,
I mean, that's a sizable amount still. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. And then we have perennial garden beds, and I don't even know how big they are.
So, yeah.
I mean,
like, it sounded like you guys had some infrastructure to start. Like, it wasn't like year one, I have an empty field and I need to convert all of it. Right?
Yes.
You guys had some of that infrastructure. Did you have to do anything else to prepare in that year one?
Not so much. I think, so interestingly, we built the house, right, as I mentioned, but we did not have accurate pictures or records about where our septic system is.
Well, that.
And so we found out the hard way. The edge of our leach bed was the start of where I was going to do my whole bed. It was a little bit north of where it is now, and it was kind of hidden, so you couldn't like be on the road and see in. Or you couldn't look out the house and see like the whole, you could still see the great lawn, as my mom likes to say. So we had to pivot to now how it is, which is actually better, ironically. But that probably was the biggest thing. We had a family friend or a coworker actually who farms just the piece that adjoins us, the farmland that adjoins us, and he was able to come and plow that 5,000 square feet spot for us. So it worked out really well. I mean, honestly, without him, we would have been dead in the water.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we fortunately, because of the landscape company, we do have access to other pieces of equipment. We do have a tractor and a golf cart, which are huge.
Yeah. So I think just for people who aren't aware, right? Like, you're not doing flower farming full time. You're still
correct.
You
yes.
You have a full time job.
I do. My mom and I both work full time off farm. We work together at the same company, which I think people would find interesting. Live together, work together, flower farm together. Only child things, right? So. Yeah, we do work off farm full time. So, and our job is seasonal because it's in landscaping. So I have 2 seasonal full time jobs.
Yes, that happen to coincide at the same time.
The time frame. I have no idea what I was thinking.
But it is really, I guess, just like you're also second year this year, right? Officially, but you are technically farming, I think, at a much bigger scale than most first or second year farmers even, right? Because you had some of the infrastructure, you obviously have some equipment that you could benefit from the landscaping company, but not to mention your mom also has run a greenhouse, has a horticulture degree. So all of that I think is a really good foundational base, right?
Yes. It's like a culmination, right? So I think without some of these aspects, we would not be where we are today. And that is really important to know, right? It's like when you see people online, they don't tell you all of that.
It's not apples to apples in terms of comparison, right? And there's a bunch of people, I think, who go into flower farming, not necessarily having the growing side, but having the business side, or vice versa, right? It becomes a lot more difficult when you don't have either of those and you're trying to navigate both, right? So,
For sure. And you know, my full-time job is at a small business. We're, you know, in the office, it's like 6 employees. So I've grown up in that company because my parents have worked there since before I was born till now, and I work with them now. So, you know, I have a very intricate look and, you know, inside look and how to run a small business, right? Know all the different elements about AP, AR, all that stuff. And that's so important,
and
I think.
You are clearly a fan of spreadsheets too, from your job.
Yes.
Connected over. But I want to talk a little bit just about, like, so I know that working full-time obviously has an impact on your outlet in terms of selling. So can you talk about in your first year, and then even for Valentine's Day, you know, how do you primarily sell your stems?
Yeah, so I knew going into this, I wanted to sell directly to florists. 100% wholesale. I wanted to limit my retail as little as possible. Personally, in my day job, I like working with professionals. I like working with our commercial customers a lot. Just personal preference. And I like that kind of banter, you know, when everyone kind of has the same level of expertise, right? You know, you can have different conversations, and when it's not your money necessarily, it's totally different, right? Like,
yes, that's actually
just being
yes.
like, you know, when it's not your money, you don't have the same attachment to it as some people do, right?
So I mean, that's actually like really gutsy in terms of just starting out for florists. Like, do you have any qualms about the ability to sell? Because, like, I always say that for a florist, right? It's not just like your ability to grow good quality, but you have to be able to do it consistently in a high enough quantity. So how was that, like, your first year?
That was a bit nerve-wracking. However, very, very kismet. Like, there was a collective that was starting my first year. I was starting. So last spring, the Greater Pittsburgh Flower Collective started, and I was fortunate enough to be able to join them in the first year, and we kind of grew together. And I love my collective. Anyone who follows me on Instagram probably knows how much I love my collective and my fellow growers. So without the collective, I truly do not think that would have been possible to be as successful as we were last year. And so I have the collective, and then I also sell to another, I sell outside of the collective to a florist who specializes in grown, not flown, local American grown flowers. So she has a huge sustainability practice, and that's the basis of her business. And she's 15 miles from me, which is incredible.
Yeah, how did you find her?
Instagram.
Okay. Yep, the power of social media.
Instagram.
Yep.
Yeah, the power of social media. It is amazing. My mom was always like, who are these people? Like, like, who are you talking about? Like, my Instagram friends, Mom. My flower friend.
Well, so I feel like a lot of people don't really know what a collective is. Can you explain that concept and how it works?
Absolutely. So the meaning for collective for us is that we're a group of growers that meet one day a week to facilitate a market where florists and some merchandisers as well, people that have small businesses and shops, can come and buy our flowers all in one spot one day a week. So some collectives are multi-member, where you buy in. Some, you know, or you pay a fee, or you part owner, like a co-op. But ours is not. Ours is managed by one person, and we have a fee percentage taken out of our sales to cover those costs.
But are you also going to the market once a week to help, like, man and staff?
Yes. No. So last year, because, you know, we were figuring ourselves out, we did on a volunteer basis. This year, we are actually hiring 2 people that get paid per market to help out. Yeah. So we actually just had our meeting last night. So we were going over that. And kind of that growing phase. And that's really fun,
Yeah.
right? Is because we got into the ground floor and we're able, kind
Yeah.
of seeing that
But
through.
like, so basically the fees that you pay for the collective not only help with the staffing, the operations, but the job of the collective is to connect you with florists, right?
Yes.
And I guess therefore take the burden off of you individually to have to produce like varieties, quantities, right? Like
Absolutely.
you come together as a collective to service the needs
Yep.
of the florists.
Yes, exactly. As a group, right? So, and the other thing too is like, say I'm short on zinnias, which happened, because I can't count apparently, that, another grower is able to cover those for me instead of shorting somebody. It's just a sub. So there's a multitude of reasons I love the collective. Ag is one of the loneliest careers you can have. It's super lonely, and having people that are in your area that are doing the same things as you're doing or similar and can understand. Many of my family are in medicine and engineers, so they don't get this. They like profit and like blah blah blah. And it's like no.
So then from a
they just don't
pricing
get it.
perspective, does the collective set the pricing if you have
Yes.
so if you're all growing zinnias, then the collective is saying like a dollar a stem or whatever when you guys follow. Okay.
Correct.
But
Yep. And so we do have some dialogue on that. Pricing is really interesting. That has, it ebbs and flows, sometimes if we have something really early, like we had really early dahlias last year, we were upcharging for that because none of the other flower farmers and even imports really, no one had dahlias. So we were like really the only people that had dahlias for like 2 weeks.
Got it. Okay. That's interesting.
So
it's a way of, because you're selling as a collective, it's not like price fixing or colluding. It's, you guys are all coming together, which is like a pretty cool concept. But then I guess like going into Valentine's Day then, were you, like how many other people have flowers?
Nobody. A little point of personal pride. Nobody else that I'm aware of actually had Valentine's Day tulips the week before Valentine's Day. Some people had them like 2 or 3 people had them like the week of Valentine's Day, like the week after. I don't think anyone was doing. Yes. Somebody that a local flower farm was experimenting, I think, with a greenhouse.
Got it. Okay. So you were the only one with flowers. And how many growers roughly are in this collective?
In my collective currently is 12. We are expanding this year. It has not been officially announced, but we are adding some. But that's out of 12 growers, right? We're talking about one who had flowers. So let's talk a little bit about why or how you decided to invest in learning how to grow tulips or forced tulips. Yeah, absolutely. So last year I saw that people were so hungry for tulips or plants in general, cut flowers. Our market opened up last year in May. This year it's going to be April. But last year our first market was the weekend before Mother's Day. And just like we had a total sellout, people, it was a combination, right? People were very excited and stuff, just hungry for fresh flowers at that point. So I just saw the demand and was like, and then seeing that June and July were pretty much of a slump for us as a collective as a whole. Myself, I barely sold anything. I didn't have that much to offer because I didn't have anything that was winter sown the year prior. Because in December or November of 2021, we're like, let's do this for real.
Oh, so
and
you
like I had just
in your before your first year, basically.
Yeah, so I only had planted like a handful of tulips that I was like, these are kind of cool. But it was like no plan. I was like, okay, we'll just. The other thing too, because my parents had planted a whole bunch of hellebores 20 some years ago, and so I have massive hellebore plants.
Okay, you have fertilized
like massive
hellebores, which is a different thing than
Which is, let me tell you, everybody, my hot tip for you is buy as many hellebores as you possibly can. We sell them for $3 a stem wholesale.
Wow, that's insane.
So,
all right, that's a whole other topic.
that is a whole other topic. I could wax on and on about hellebores and how much I love them. But yeah,
Wow.
so combination of this, seeing, how well the hellebores were received in particular, and just spring flowers, and then, the July
But it's so
slump.
funny
Then
that you say this, because I had the exact same experience. Like, I distinctly remember
Mhm.
my farmer's market started on that first weekend in May. It was beautiful outside.
Mhm.
Everyone wanted to
Yes.
get out. I actually bought tulips from a local flower farmer, sold them at
Mhm.
$2.50 a stem, so it was like 8 for $20, and I sold out basically.
Nice.
And then I
Right.
was like, I don't know, like, for whatever reason, I naively assumed that, flowers maybe wouldn't like sell like gangbusters, but it would still
Yeah.
sell, right? But some of
Sure.
the worst sales were during the summer, because no one wanted to be
Mhm.
out, and then you're also competing not only with other growers but also people like gardeners, right,
Backyard.
who are growing
Yeah.
zinnias and
Backyards.
sunflowers and all that stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
so I think universally people will always agree that spring is like the best time to sell flowers. Yeah, and we're not
Yeah.
even in
Yeah.
spring, hypothetically. So,
No, we're not spring. It's February. It feels like spring out
yes,
there
exactly. Yeah.
right now. It has been. It's kind of freaking me out, but but yeah. So, and then because most of the florists that buy from us are event florists, things pick then back up August, September, October, in gangbusters. Just, I mean, you would not believe dahlias. And so my collective also has a lot of dahlias. We have a lot of dahlia growers, myself included. My dahlias were horrible last year, but this year I'm coming back strong with them. So we'll see. So that really is why I wanted to do tulips, is because I saw that market desire, right? Like the demand was there and scarce. There really aren't that many people that grow cut flowers in the winter months here. There are, people, there are about, I don't know, a handful, like 3 farms. And let me be clear too, that like the Pittsburgh area really does not have that many flower farms. Like truly, like big scale. And big scale is like 10 acres. Like we're not talking like, the Pittsburgh market is pretty minimal. There are some people kind of in the more outlier places that do come in. And there are a lot of people that are veggie farmers in combination with flower farmers. There's not that many straight flower farms in our region.
So let me ask you another question then. Like you're 40 miles away from Pittsburgh, so it's not that far away from like a metropolis. But would you like how would you categorize, within like a 20-mile radius of where you are? Is it more rural? Is it suburban?
It's for sure rural.
Okay.
So Allegheny County, where Pittsburgh is the county south of me. I live in the middle of Butler County. In the southern part of Butler County is Cranberry Township, which is like the northern suburbs of Pittsburgh, and it's huge. It's exploded. So really the only reason
why I ask is because there are all these Facebook groups, right? And there was a post recently that someone showed. It was a vase of, it looked like 12 or 13 tulips. She was trying to sell them for $20. And she was trying to look for constructive feedback on why none of her tulips sold. And you got this range of, obviously opinions on why they didn't sell. For me, I was like, man, you're putting 13 in a vase, like for $20, like what value that is. And then you had other people who were basically like, no, like that is way too expensive. I live in a rural area, or I live in a city where I can't compete with others. Like, how has that pricing piece factored in, or like has it factored in at all in terms of confidence and the ability to push stems at this price point that we're looking at?
Yeah, right. So like we haven't even talked about that, but our tulips are very expensive. I'll just go ahead and say that my wholesale tulips are $2 a stem, which is a lot. It's a lot, like that's a lot.
Also, not uncommon for that to be a wholesale.
Yes, correct. However, some of my florists were telling me that they could get 10 stems for $635 from home.
But they are also not dreamers and
there's no comparison, right? Like they don't look like this. They're like this big, barely colored, but that's a whole other conversation. So Maybe it's just my personality, but like, quite frankly, I'm not here to convince you to buy my tulips.
I like that.
Quite frankly, they're a luxury item. And this is something that I'm very fortunate in my collective. The person who runs my collective, Mary, hi Mary, she has really been on that. Local flowers are a luxury item. They're not posies. They're not wildflowers. No. I think having someone who is leading my collective, that really just kind of elevates everybody to be like, no, these are a luxury item.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, maybe, again, I think that's part of my personality is like, I'm just really not that interested in trying to convince people.
Yeah.
That,
I mean, I go in between this, you're obviously paying a premium because of local and all that stuff. Emily Von Trapp, who is one of the facilitators of the Tulip Workshop, she said in a recent podcast that it was really important for her flowers to feel accessible price point wise to the average person, right? So I think this is the piece that I kind of struggle with, where, in order to, dissuade the average local consumer from going to the grocery store and picking up that bunch of stems that came flying in, refrigerated, all that stuff with a high carbon footprint, right? It still needs to feel obtainable, yet we also need to make money and be able to grow and expand, right? So yeah, I feel like that's a piece that I agree with you. I'm not here to convince someone who's looking for, $10 for 20 stems. You're not my customer, right? At the same time, it's one of those things where I understand, in order for a florist to be able to buy a $2 stem, they're likely doing event work. And in that event work, you're paying upwards of what you would normally pay for flowers. So, I think when you sell to florists, it's it's in some ways easier if you can find the right florist crowd for that.
Yes.
Versus for retail, I'm constantly, how do you, today, for example, I sold a bunch of, it was singles, it was 10, and I sold it for $15, which is really, really low. But this is a neighbor who comes to me literally for every single time she is going to a friend's house. She just wants to say happy birthday, right? And for me, it's I'll give you $5 off because you'll come to me and I'll get the volume from you, right? And you're helping me spread that message. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that's again why I focus on wholesale, right? Is because the price is the price. And quite frankly, with a full-time job, I don't have time for that.
I totally agree.
And I love the personal aspect of doing retail like that, because your customers and you get to do things like that because they're going to return. And I give my I give my florists that buy a lot from me, I'll give them an extra part bunch, or I'll give them dried flowers, and it's just, it depends, right?
It's a relationship at the end of the day, right? So yes,
it is. And to me, I prefer having fewer relationships with, my florist, right? I have about, 10 that
that's a lot,
right, that I can think of. It's a lot. Yeah. And we're just very fortunate. I'm not sure what it is. It's interesting because we don't have that many flower farms, but we do seem to have a pretty robust flower community, florist community of people that really love local flowers. And, after being in the collective, people were just so excited, just the stuff. And I think too, was the ability to go and see what we have. That was really important. We do have a local wholesaler in the city that you can go shop the floor from as well. But it's just different. Our stuff is niche and our stuff's special. Dreamers who've been hanging out in the background, they're stunning. Jesse and I were talking about how they almost look like peonies.
I mean, they're practically a cross between a peony and a rose. It's
practically, and they smell amazing. It's just so good.
I mean, you're not going to find this really anywhere else. Is the point, right?
No,
and that in of itself obviously deserves a premium. So I definitely want to talk a little bit more about the pricing and numbers piece of it. But let's talk about your setup, right? Because obviously you're not growing these on the 14 acres. So talk to me a bit about your setup.
They're growing in our
Yes.
basement, in our furnace room. Yeah, that's interesting. Watering your concrete floors in your
Yes.
basement.
Well,
That's
so
fun.
actually, yes. So people who follow me know that I predominantly do the hydroponic forcing. You are doing
Oh, yes.
soil crate forcing. So, you're obviously dealing with soil. When you water,
Yep.
there's the drippage versus for me, it's contained in a tray. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So for big overview, I did 950 tulips for Valentine's Day. Dreamers, which are the pink doubles, and then Allison Bradley, which you also had, which is it's a purple red double, but it's not the peony
Correct.
type. Right? It's kind of a double. Anyway, so I grew 950, and I had pre-orders out to my florist. I think I did that the last week of January. I emailed everybody, said, here's my availability, here are the price, here are my delivery times and my delivery fee. And I also put them on Rooted Farmers, which is what my collective uses for sales. So that was good. I had that going. I sold about 40% to my florist, existing florist. I had a couple people that I've never sold to that were kind of doing pop-ups. They reached out and bought a couple bouquets, but so mostly the tulips, so 40%, whatever that comes out to be, they went for pop-ups people were doing. They went to premium bouquets that people had done. And then they went to workshops, which is super interesting. 100 went to workshops. And then another 100 went to a wedding shoot, which was incredible.
A wedding shoot?
Just like the dream. Yeah. A group of creators got together and they did a shoot.
Instagram, because I saw the
Yep. Yes. And it was just stunning. It was so beautiful. So it was kind of a gamut what the tulips went to, and it was mostly the dreamers.
You were able to sell all of those at $2 a stem.
Yep.
Wow.
I was. I know. And it's so interesting because I did have somebody say they were expensive, and then fortunately they turned around and sold out of everything, which was like so grateful. I was like, thank you, God. For coming through.
Let's be mindful. There are a lot of things in life that are that are expensive and still sell out, right? So it's not,
Bingo. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it really does come down to just having the connection with people, right? And they have the trust. They have the trust in me. Mostly people have known me in a whole season of selling, and they saw the pictures on Instagram, and then they were emailing me. I emailed everyone for Easter availability, and so many people are like, we love the tulips, all caps, 7 exclamation marks. I'm like, you guys are the best. Prize. So yeah, it really is finding those people, right? And it's hard. It's not an easy thing. I honestly think so much of it's kismet and just luck. I just right place, right time, and there's so much that's life, right?
But,
you just gotta be at the
right place. But the amount of stems that you grew for Valentine's Day, that's what, 15 crates ish, something like that. 12
and a half.
Yeah. So it's not a terrible amount of space.
Right. So what ended up happening, I brought some in. Oh man, I meant to write this down. I brought some in, I think the 9th
of January.
Let me look. January. And I was fully expecting, because in the Tulip Workshop that we both did, they have expected time periods. But Dreamer was not one, or Allison Bradley and Dreamer were not included in that. So it was kind of flying blind. I was like, there'll be 20 days. It'll be 25 days. I swear to God.
Allison Bradley
Allison Bradley. I'm pretty sure it was 13 for me. I'm mad that I didn't look at this, but it was insane. I was like, you cannot be serious right now.
Something happened to me where I intended on forcing really the same amount as you, close to 1,000. And I was successful in forcing them. They just came a little too early. So, 3 weeks too early, which at that point becomes really difficult to hold. And you and I had the same issue with Allison Bradley. We were talking about, do we bring them into the cooler? Do we put them into a dark spot? All that stuff. So it really hammers home the importance of variety selection and having the experience, right? So I think next time I would do like one tray just to figure out what those timings are. Because even now, as I'm getting ready for Easter, now that I have some data on some of the varieties I'm forcing, I'm like, okay, I know I need a root on this day, and I know that it's going to take X amount of time to bloom, because there is like a 2-week difference for some varieties, which is shocking. Yeah.
Yes. So I just did the math. My Allison Bradleys were 12 days
12 days after
to
you brought
bloom.
them in from rooting.
They came in on the 9th, and by the 21st, they were like blown
so
open.
You've got 10 days in January plus another 14 days, so 24 days. That's a stretch to hold, especially if you're selling it to a florist, right? Who, you know, it's I think that was the piece for me where I also took some pre-orders from florists, and then there was a florist who ordered 100 from me, and I started freaking out because those stems started coming in on the 18th of January, and I was like, I really want to give you like the best stems because you're the repeat customer. And then she canceled. I was like, thank God. Like, thank you.
You're like, actually, thank you.
Like, thank you. I can sleep at night now. And then I ended up delivering to another florist who works with local farmers. And they were candy prints. They were really short. And another farmer actually told me that her candy prints, they have this like paper like quality when they open. It's really they're thin. And they don't fully open, so it's like, I'm just gonna give these to you for free, like you can check the I mean, I gave her 10. I gave her like 10 ad rems, and it was just like, you know, I was able to sleep better, and she enjoyed the ad rems and that kind of stuff, right? So, but it made me realize how stressful it is to sell, especially for pre-committed orders, because then you have to deliver.
I was not sleeping the week prior to. I was like having crazy dreams. I was up at 5 a.m. like downstairs, like cranking the heat. So what ended up, I'm getting off track, but what ended up happening is I brought them in and they're popping off by like January 21st. I was like, and I had brought all of them in. Like, I got to take them back out of the house in the golf cart, take them back to my cooler, which is in the barn. So we have a 6x10 cooler. I meant to measure. Oh, I have video footage for you all though, so we can put that in there of the cooler. And so fortunately, I was able to have enough floor space to put them out and not have racks, which wouldn't have been a huge issue at that point. It's like whatever at this point. And then I brought them back in, but Allison Bradley was really fast, but Dreamer's like more common, like it's probably like a 20-day bloom. And so like I didn't bring the Dreamer in fast enough, and then I was like cranking the heat, 24-hour lights. I was like, we gotta go. And I had to move some of my deliveries from Friday to Saturday, and I was like, I'm really sorry. But they're just like not ready. Like,
it's a huge difference.
And that is why I'm never going to do tulips outside. After this year,
I think that's the thing I really appreciate about soil forcing. Like, forget about the fact that you don't need to get dirty and, you know, have to wash your stems upon harvest. It's like, it's the fact that you have so much more control over manipulating both light and temperature to either slow or speed up.
It was freaking 65 degrees here when I delivered on Thursday before Thanksgiving. Thursday before Valentine's Day. Like, and the interesting thing, Jesse, I don't know if you witnessed this, or I think we did talk about this, that when you dry pack, the stems that we're going now stay rigid. But if you dry pack in spring stems, they get all floppy.
I've heard of that, and I don't know why. I actually have quite a bit outside, and it's because the bulbs, when they arrived to me, were not in good condition for forcing, even for soil forcing. So I have about 3,000 outside, and I think it's like, it's almost Russian roulette to me, especially with the wild weather this year, right? And I think that's what the other piece about the winter forcing is so great, is that obviously, you know, we hit Valentine's Day in a time when no one else has flowers. And then Easter this year is the 9th of April, which is still too early, even in a mild climate like, or a mild winter like this one, right? So you kind of hit two holidays with,
That is nice. So my second half, I'm growing the same amount, about 1,000, but they are 6 different varieties. The one thing, so we're going to talk about like the Tulip Workshop, but like the one thing that was a little frustrating was like, I didn't know going into it what varieties were able to be forced. So I just was like, okay, these are great. Like impressions and all these other fun ones. Had to put them outside, which is fine. But I just kind of have some weird, like just some random quantities. Like my quantities, I have like one tray of candy prints.
Yeah.
Like, okay, great.
6 stems of them or 6 bunches of them, right? Yeah.
6 bunches.
Yeah.
Sure. It'll work out, but it was just like, weird, like stuff like that. For the Easter ones, I will be curious if some of the other local people that grow in greenhouses or grow in a coop, if they will be hitting that. So I actually did lower my price to $1.70 per stem, which, you know,
I mean, $1, that's like 30 cents off of each, right? And I would assume that like for those bulbs, like you did not pay as premium of a price for Allison Bradley and Dreamer, right?
Correct. Except I did buy some like 100 from somebody that was like 60 cents.
Yeah. So 60 cents is definitely on the higher end. Cause I believe like Allison Bradley was what, like 55, 56 cents.
Yeah. With freight, I think she was 58 and then Dreamer was 62 with freight. I think.
So even at 62 like for Dreamer, you know, you're selling it for $2 each. Like how much roughly are you saying are you thinking you're making off of each stem after I mean, labor is very hard to calculate, right? But like light,
that is, you know, kind of
that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I really need to spend some time thinking about that. But what I was saying was 60-cent bulb, $1 in labor. And that was taking into account that I'm paying myself $30 and
my dog is like,
I know, I got a cat out there begging and a dog running around, so you know, just farm things.
You heard the alarm go off because my husband take out the trash, but sorry about that.
Such a good protector. Protecting you from the trash.
He would be the worst dog to protect anything because he's like, give me a pet. So
yeah, like, hi, I love me. So I was figuring that each crate took 2 hours.
Okay.
And $30, $60 total per crate. And that's probably pretty rich. I probably could dwindle that down to an hour. Yeah. And with mileage, forget about it. Like,
I mean, look, like
the mileage blows it out of the water.
It's a volume game, and I think that the difference between winter forcing and field grown tulips is that field grown is kind of set it and forget it until you harvest, right? With winter grown, it's not. There's a lot more work involved than I think what most people think.
Yes. That is huge. And you know, here's the thing too, right? Is like we're talking about this, but like it's an advanced technique. Like I you know, again, overconfidence. I'm just like, yeah, we're doing it. Like, yeah, we're gonna sell directly to florists. So like, oh, I don't care, whatever. But really, like, tulip forcing is not for the uninitiated and people who are not able to be flexible. I think that is huge. And so I'm writing a blog post that we've talked about that I'm going to talk about, you know, things you should consider. And one of the massive things is space. Like, do you have a big enough cooler? Do you have another space? Like for soil forcing, you need to have them up about 2 to 3 inches rooted in. And so if if you're trying to do early ones, they need, and you only have a cooler that's at 40, right? Like they're going to take a long time to root. So you either have another space that's 50 that allows them to root, or you just are like, you're like me and you're like, oh, well, it's just Valentine's Day. Like they'll be plenty rooted in by the time Valentine's Day rolls around. Because I planted like end of November. Okay. My dreamers, I think, were end of November. And then before that,
you pre-cooled anyway. So it wasn't,
Yeah, and they were pre-cooled. Like it was just like the rooting thing.
But no, it's a really good point because I think a lot of people go into the course thinking I will throw my like the cooler can act as two different functions, right? And it can't
Cannot.
because of the
Cannot.
humidity piece of it, which you don't
Yeah.
realize until you take the course, right? So I think there's a lot of people who balk at the price, which obviously is not cheap to invest in the course, but bulbs are not cheap either. And
bulbs are not
and then there's an opportunity cost, right? It's like you have one season. So, you know, did you maximize the time in that season to learn? And to me, it's just like there's so many different variables where it's like just pay for the damn course if you're serious about it, right? But like, yeah.
Unless you're like somebody who's been growing for 20 years and you're like, you can probably, figure
then it's a bit
but at that point, it's like, you probably have $1,300 to chuck at it. Like, just do the damn thing. But yeah, that is huge. Like, that kind of aspect of like is not cheap. And we've talked about also, you know, I soil forest, so I have crates. I was able to source crates very cheap. I have a ton of crates. I like have a hoard of crates. Then I also had to buy Promix. And so you get about 10 crates out of one bale of Promix. That's $50. That's huge. The cooler is huge. And then, as we've talked about before, personally, is like the physicality of lifting those crates. That is big. And that's, you know, it's kind of unfortunate, but that's flower farming. It's like, it's seriously physical. And, you know, and then so with the hydroforcing side, you know, the trays are expensive. I know. I don't even know how much they are, but I know they're expensive.
They're $20 a tray for used trays.
For used trays.
And I'll be honest, the quality is not fantastic. So I've gotten to a point where I'm reaching out to other tray suppliers in the Netherlands, and I'm like, I'll order a pallet off of you, and I'll like,
you're like, let's make it happen.
Yeah. I mean, look, like at the end of the day, the trays that currently exist, like they're fine, right? But you accidentally drop one, like you're screwed. You know, it's gonna chip and break and that kind of stuff. So I mean, there's pros and cons to both, right? Like hydroponics, it's a lot lighter. I don't have to deal with the soil. I don't have to deal with the dirt, but I also have less flexibility in the types of bulbs that I force, right? Like you will be able to force a lot more in a crate than I would, right? And I think that was the other learning. Was obviously not every single bulb is going to come to you in a state that is forcible, and it's like duh now, but when you're new, you're like, I order this variety, I'm gonna have 500, and it's like, nope. It's like, that is a big learning curve. And too, like disease, that is huge. As you know, what we're talking about with getting bulbs that aren't suitable, it's because they're diseased, and tulip bulbs are super prone to disease. You name it, they got it. Like, you don't realize this when you're field planting, because the disease is a lot more containable because of the seal with the soil and all that stuff, right? So
it just doesn't matter. It's like, I'm just chucking them in the ground. Like, it's not a big deal, but it's like you gotta plant them in a crate. You gotta put them in your cooler for how many weeks, months. Like you want every single tulip to be good, right? And worth your time. So, you know, we have to be picky, not only because of production, but also this risk of spreading other diseases to the rest of the crate. Huge issue. I know that's huge in soil forcing or hydro. Less in soil forcing. I did have some penicillin, but things were fine. I got some weird top growth mold on some of them down in the barn right now.
I mean, they're usually fine. But it's kind of funny because I feel like the more that we're talking about this, the more complicated we're making. Like, it's complicated, but it's also not, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I know. It's like, it's so goofy. It's like, I was thinking that as I was writing, I was like, it's hard, but it's not. Like
we are two people who never really grew tulips in the field before, right? So
that's important.
If we can do it, then most other people, I think, also can, right? But to your point about space, I think that there's this initial amount that most people should have no problem achieving. It's once you want to scale beyond that where it becomes a lot more difficult, right? So a few hundred is definitely very easy. But once you start getting to the thousands, now you start thinking about, okay, like I need more infrastructure. And then you've got someone like Linda, who's the other instructor who did like 15,000 stems for Valentine's Day. You know, she's growing between a greenhouse and a basement, right? Like that's the level of, you know, space that you need. The other funny thing was a local newspaper picked up that I was growing tulips.
Oh yeah.
And it was
Saw
like,
that.
yeah, she's forcing 200,000. And I'm like, oh my God. First of all, I said Emily was trying to force
Yeah.
200,000, but can you imagine what 200,000 sounds like? So I had a local farm who I think is forcing, I want to say like 50,000. And she like
Oh wow.
messages me. She goes, I didn't know how big you were. I was like, no, like knock
Not.
off a couple of
Absolutely not.
zeros, you know? Yeah. I can't
Yeah.
even fathom
Yeah.
what 200,000 looks like. Yeah.
No. No.
So,
No. I just like, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, and the other side of that too, right, is like you need to be producing enough that it's worth your investment.
yes. And that's actually
Like,
the piece where I struggle with now, because I'm in this constant state
mhm.
of I either have too many stems or I don't have enough stems. Like I'll have 100
Yeah.
come in at once, and then obviously since I'm not going the florist route, I'm constantly trying to sell my stems. But 100 stems is
Right.
roughly like 10, 11 bouquets. It's not that many. So then
Yeah.
once you sell like
Right.
7, 8 bouquets, then you're like, well, now I don't have enough stems. Like if I keep on pushing, right? So that's, yeah, I'm definitely not forcing at a level where it's highly profitable, nor does it make it easy
Mhm.
for me to forecast demand and advertise. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And that is hard. I don't envy your situation at all because, working full time, it's like, I don't have time for that crap.
Exactly. Yeah.
And to like, yes, it's winter. Yes, I'm trying to maximize the off season, but like, it's still
Correct.
the off
Yeah, you don't
season.
want to completely burn yourself
And I
out.
need
Yeah.
to be like resting up, hanging out, like, and all in all, the tulips weren't that much work.
Yes,
Again, we're going
exactly.
back to that, like, it's
Yep.
easy, but it's hard. Like, it's not that much work,
Yep.
but it is. The things I do like about tulips is it's so nice to be like come down to your basement in your PJs, like flick on the lights, harvest your little tulips, ready to go, post a picture on Instagram. People are like, oh, tulips in your basement.
Yeah, I mean, I think
It's
that
just like
for people who like
optics.
to grow, who want something to do in the winter, like it's also,
Yeah.
not everything's always about the profit, right? There's also like,
Yes.
there's meaning behind growing stuff at a time when no one else can. So
Right.
like, I guess just from a forward-looking perspective, given how you've done this year,
Mhm.
like, what do you plan on doing for next Valentine's Day?
Yeah, so I'm hoping my scheme here is I'm going to do about
Wow,
3,000. Yeah, I know. But what I'm hoping to do is to do we're going to do a 3-week CSA in February. So it's going to kind of coincide. I might be trying to lose my mind here, doing it around Valentine's Day. But my kind of aim is to do a CSA 3 weeks. I think I'm going to do 10 stems, kind of more luxury or whatever. Because I was doing 8, which I think 8 is very nice. Excuse me, for retail has a good price point, but I think to do a CSA.
So then you would are you going for that $250 a stem retail for the CSA? Yep. So $25 for basically a 10 a 10 stem bouquet. Yep.
Yeah, that's my plan for right now. I may change; it may go up a little bit, but I really do think $25.
I think it's
reasonable.
Yeah, exactly, especially if you grow
$75.
the right types in the sense that they're going to look like they're big.
Yes, like they're that. Like that's to me that's worth $25, and I'm cheap.
But I will say,
let me just say this:
brownies, if you put 10 of them, they look a little skinny.
Yeah, they're just not comparatively like putting it like, yeah. And that's the thing too, right? Is like, it should be very clear that I'm a cheap person. I would personally not necessarily buy this.
Yeah, you don't have to be your own customer.
I mean, they're beautiful. They're stunning. I'm not my own customer. Yeah. And that goes back to like, I'm not my ideal customer at all.
No, I totally
get that.
And I there is a huge difference between paying 35 cents for a bulb versus 60 cents for a bulb, right? Like it's huge. So, like for me, I know I'm definitely going to be a lot more selective about varieties next year. And it's not just from how big is, the ultimate bloom head, but it's also like achieving how quickly they grow, staggering, right? That kind of stuff. So there's a bunch of different variables, I think, that you can only consider after doing it for a season. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. And then I think that's kind of the rub too, is like, if you're going to do it your first year, like you kind of got to have some money behind you. Like, I that's just really what it comes down to is like, you're not going to be super profitable. Like you're going to lose your mind before you're super profitable, I think, in your first year.
Like, I don't think you and I went into this first year being like, yes, we're going to make a killing off of this winter forcing. But it was at least like, I'm going to make back most of my investment, learn, and then be able to scale and to do more, right? Like, so I was actually tallying up how much I've sold in tulips so far, and I've sold basically the cost of the course. So I went to the farm. So it's $1,500.
Yeah, same actually.
Right? Now, if you add in all of the bulbs, you add in the infrastructure costs, right? Like I'm obviously, it's gone down. But clearly the demand is there, right? And I think that you bring up a really good point is that, if you're going to take this workshop, like you're not forcing 200-300 tulips, then it wouldn't be worth it.
And they tell you not to.
True. Yes.
And they explicitly tell you not to do that.
3,000 ish makes back the investment. Yep. Yeah. But 3,000 is not cheap in terms of bulbs, right?
No. And another thing too that I'm going to talk about in my blog post is, when you get these tulips, it is the busiest time of year for you. The worst possible time, right? So I had an early frost, October 13th, I think, which was fine. And I was like, everyone else is out there, like cutting stems, covering their dahlias. I'm like, absolutely not. I'm done. I've had enough. I've seen enough of this. You guys can chase the rest of the season. Because our florist did have a lot of October weddings. I was like,
sorry.
Tapped out. Sorry.
Yeah.
Fortunately, that's the good thing about being a collective is that we had other growers that are more. I'm the most northern grower in my collective at the moment. So I kind of tapped out early, which is great. I was like more than happy by that time. And then so I was done with my dahlias. I divided whatever was totally done by Halloween. So October 31st, I was done. Everything was wrapped up. The only tasks I had to do at that point were the tulips. And I was dead set on that. I was like, I am so done. Like I'm tired. I need a break. And so by, I think, and I also had been doing tulips in the middle of October when I got mine. I was like, okay. And the cooler was done. So my cooler wasn't done until end of October. Okay. Yeah. Just, I like to live on the edge apparently. I'm just like, we'll just get the cooler done. It'll be great. So fortunately that got done in time for the tulips to go into the cooler. It was very cool. We had a very cool fall, thankfully. Not south of me though. They were pretty warm. Like I don't think the south of me got. I think it was like middle of November. They got their killing frost.
Yeah, because we had a killing frost in October, and then it was mild. And then and it took a few more weeks for it to truly be like a killer. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so funny. People north of me didn't get the snow I got.
Okay. Yeah. But I mean, to your point, it's the bulbs don't come at the best time, especially if they're not pre-chilled, right? And you only have X amount of time to get them into your crates or into a longer term storage solution because they're going to start rotting or getting disease. And
that's huge. Yeah, that was a really long way just to say that you're super busy.
But it's also one of those things as you scale, right? It's not like, I mean, it becomes more imperative that you have help in terms of labor at that point, right?
Yeah.
Because there's just no way you can do all of it by yourself.
No, and we're very fortunate. We have some of our coworkers that come and help, we'll pay cash which is great. So we had somebody that came right after the killing frost to help me clean up the field. And so my mom and my mom and I, the three of us, got the field done in over 2 weekends. Fabric up, cut down, fabric up, done, put to bed. Which isn't feasible for many people. We just kind of powered through it. And we're like, we got to get this wrapped up. But so going back to that is, I got my non-cooled tulips middle of September because I ordered in April with my broker. Through ADR, and it became I didn't tell them a ship date. I did not tell them a ship date, and my broker just got me whatever ship date they offered, which is the earliest one possible. I guess.
Arrive.
Of course.
The bulbs.
Mine were beautiful.
And so I actually asked them to hold mine till December, they were not beautiful.
Yes. Yeah. There were some varieties that were not looking so great. And it was really interesting. I had ordered, there was a mistake on the order form I got, that the White Valley Exotic Emperor, no, Spring Green, which is a Vridiflora, whatever, it has to be planted into the ground. But it had said 700, but they shipped me 500. And I didn't count when I first got them. So what ended up happening is, like, because I bought through my broker, which is something we get from work, fortunately. That's someone that we've known for 30 years. So he's a real one, but he hates me for doing bulbs because he wants to sell trees. But anyhow, I digress. So fortunately, we were able to get a refund on that because it was just a mistake. But
I mean, ADR's been because I sent them photos and they refunded me a significant amount, right? And I would totally do business with them again. I don't think I would ever ask them to hold tulips. But
which that's the learning curve. But that's the learning curve, right? Is like, knowing that, like, that's probably not the best option.
Where you start realizing that outside of NBC, Netherland Bulb Company, because they do so much business with Emily and Linda, that they know that they have students and themselves who are forcing. Most of these other brokers are not selling to people who are forcing like us, right? So even like talking to your broker about cooling times and everything, I don't think some of these brokers are fully detail oriented and being like, okay, like she needs to know, because it was very clear that some of my bulbs got their cooling and some of them didn't, and they just lumped them together. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like fabulous. Yeah, no, our plant broker does not know anything about As I said, he's a big tree guy. He'd love to sell me a tractor trailer load of trees, which he does for the landscape company, but not personally, right? So that is the advantage of working directly with a bulb company, as like someone like Netherland Bulb. We also know them as well from working with them over the years. So they're great. Highly recommend Netherland Bulb.
I mean, they seem to be like, obviously Emily and Linda, I think, do like a majority of their bulbs through them, and then they're getting a lot of workshop students. So I think they're obviously a little bit more cognizant of this.
Yes. So when I had gone to Mance, which is the Mid-Atlantic Nursery Trade Show, in January, I was talking to Ben, who is the owner of Netherland Bulb, and I was talking about forcing, and he's like, "Are you a disciple of Emily Von Trapp?" Like, yes, actually, I am.
It's one of those things where, like, I reached out to NBC, found my bulb rep, and I mentioned Emily's name, and like one of the things that Emily tells you is, like, once you do above, few $1,000s worth, like, you're definitely considered like a good customer, so they'll get back to you.
Yes.
So you put all that on paper and you say, like, I'm a student of Emily and Linda's, and they're like, yes, like, I will be in touch with you within 24 hours. Would you like a visit?
Yeah. For sure.
I'm like, you don't need to visit me. I'm a little small.
Yeah, like, I'll send you some pictures. You can decide if you want to come out. I know, it's funny. We were joking with our rep, who's like a longtime friend of my mom's, that we're gonna make him come out because we know him, but he's not technically our area. He's probably your rep, actually, because he lives out in New Jersey.
Right?
And it's Andy. He does the production. He does the production side of things in their greenhouse stuff. But yeah, so it's just funny. We were like joking around that we're gonna make him come out because he's from Pittsburgh, so he's a real Yinzer. So if you ever talk on the phone, you'll know it's him because he's a very Pittsburgh accent. But anyway, I digress about our bulb talk. But yeah, the tulips they're a funny thing. They're easy, they're hard,
but they're definitely I think they're worth it.
Yes. Everyone was like, "Are you gonna do it again?"
Of course.
I'm like, "Yeah, I gotta make money back." But yeah,
I mean, I'm
like, but actually,
that tulips are not gonna, unless if you're growing at Emily and Linda scale, they're not gonna feed your family, right? But
absolutely
they have a value in a way that no other flower would, because you're the only one who has flowers, right? So even like that local newspaper, like I actually had a local magazine, a local newspaper reach out to me, and it's like no one would ever reach out to you at the height of the summer. because like everyone has, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things
Mm-hmm.
where I think there's a bit of a novelty. You also remind
Yes.
people that you have flowers way earlier in the season than later on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of
Yep.
intangible benefits to it. But I guess, if someone was on the fence about taking the Tulip Workshop, like what would
Mm-hmm.
you say?
Yeah, I would say, definitely analyze where you are in your business. To make it worth it, I think you really need to be in the 2000 mark in your first year.
2000 mark
Just
of
making your money of doing tulips. So like in your first year, I probably would say you'd want to do about
2000
2000.
stems, yep.
2000 stems, right? So, and I had pre-cooled
Yep.
and non-cooled. Right, so kind of breaking it up. Don't put all your eggs in one basket for Valentine's Day, as tempting as that might be.
But 2000, right?
You know,
Like if you break that down financially, let's say you take the course, that's like $1,200 without the farm visit. 2000 tulips, if you're
Right.
buying tulips at 50 cents a bulb, you're setting aside another $1,000. If you're able to get them for 30 cents,
Yep.
$600, right? So it is an investment. Yeah.
It's an investment. It's for sure an investment. And that's not the trays. That's
the trays,
not
the soil,
the cooler.
right? Because it's,
Like,
ideally you're using sterilized soil, so like a pro mix.
Yep. Pro mix.
And
Yeah.
that's also assuming you have infrastructure that is set up between the cooler, your basement, your lights, all that stuff. Yep.
Yeah. The infrastructure side is key to me, because I was like, as I was saying, we were scrambling to finish the cooler, which ended up being fine. But if you don't have those resources and you don't have somebody that can come to your house for 3 straight weekends, and also the person that did our cooler did not charge us enough money for labor, so like our cooler ended up being like $2,800, but it probably should have been $3,500. If and we're a good family friend, right?
I mean,
so
yeah,
and that's a lot of people do have that, but some people don't. And so my friend just bought a big floral cooler, double doors. She paid $2,500.
I mean, I will say that because I live obviously in the Northeast and in a northern climate, I got away with my garage. Not optimal because of this mild winter, and there were days where that garage definitely got above 52 degrees. You want your flowers ideally, below 40 degrees if possible, right? So I would say for the most part, they were probably in the 40s, right? And it was fine for the amount I was doing. But if I wanted to scale, that garage is not a viable solution, because then you're also putting a lot on the line.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, right? Is like you need to have the infrastructure so you're not relying on that. Like you can confidently you can sleep at night knowing that your tulips are going to aren't getting too hot or what have you. And rodents too. I know you battled the rodents.
But like
we're very fortunate.
Infrastructure is important, but at the same time, everyone has such a different setup that it's like, you'll be able to make it work with what you have, but you need to be able to put the effort in to figure it out, right? Like that's the key.
Yeah, there's a lot of brain power.
Yeah, this is not let me take a course and if I buy some bulbs and some crates, I'll be able to do it, right? There's more on top of that.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. And I think that's what's critical, right? Is like, that's where the advanced side comes in, because you got to be like, I got plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, like, here's my contingencies. And you just have to be okay or be able to put forth a fair amount of money up front with, the risk of maybe you won't make any of it back. Quite honestly. I mean, truthfully, especially if you're not doing that much, and you have a crop failure, you get bad bulbs, you have mice that eat your bulbs, you got to power out, and I think that kind of risk assessment, right, is, you take the risk assessment and understand that like there's a lot of risk. There's great reward, but of course, great reward, great risk, right? It's that pendulum thing of like, so I definitely would recommend the Tulip Workshop if you got some extra money and we're talking like, I don't know, like $5,000 comfortably. That's just kind of weird.
I mean, I would never encourage anyone to go into debt for it. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Like, don't be mortgaging out. Like
putting it on a credit card is my point, right? But at the same time,
that too,
if you have money to reinvest, I think this is one of the better places to
Yeah,
reinvest because of the timing, the opportunity,
absolutely.
the demand, and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree
Yeah.
100%. 100%. And it's so personal, like it depends on what
Yep.
your setup is. So we kind of touched on this in a roundabout way, but we have a barn that has a concrete floor, and we were able to just put up two walls and insulate in, build a door, and our cooler
Yeah.
was ready to go. So
Yeah. Of
that's
course.
huge,
Yeah.
right? Like we already have this barn that's there. We're able to hire somebody. It ended up being $2,800. As I said, it probably should be closer to four. For the electrical, because the electrical
Yeah.
was all set up. We just had to put in the CoolBot, the cooler, it's air conditioning unit itself. So it's a 10
Okay.
by
I mean, that's a fair
6, I
size
think.
cooler.
Yeah, it's a pretty big size. It worked out great because I could put all of my
Yep.
tulips on level that I was forcing at the time. I couldn't do, because I had 24 total crates. No, more than that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
24 crates. So I could put half of them down and then have my
Yep.
2 stacks for Easter. So that worked out great. And then we have a big, our house and our furnace room has a concrete floor, and it's unfinished. And we were able to set up a growing space down there, with some of my existing racks. And then we had a table we built that we just put on casters and then hung lights underneath that table. So we kind of, it was a little bit, we had some stuff already for seed starting, but then we, kind of adjusted the table as well. So that wasn't too bad. But other thing too is the humidity is a huge issue. We touched on before, is like, fortunately, because it's a furnace room, it's very low humidity and it stays consistently, which is why I think I had Allison Bradley's in 12 days is because the temperature doesn't really fluctuate. It's like 62 to 68. It doesn't do that dip that people with greenhouses experience because it's inside. So that's a huge consideration, is like what's your growing space?
Absolutely.
Because it needs to be 60.
So, I mean, like, just so many things to consider, but not necessarily, roadblocks, right? Like there's ways to figure it out is the point. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, they're obstacles, but you can absolutely figure it out. And just, it just depends on how willing you are to be flexible, I think, and how willing you are to, winter, everything takes 4 times as long as that's I think what I forgot at first. I was like, yes, winter, winter mode. Everyone's slower. Everything's stuck. Everything, And so we took some of our golf cart wouldn't start, for example. So I was taking a sled. Like we did buy a sled from Amazon, like one that you actually put things in, not like a kid's sled, but like a sled you can pull. So I was pulling my tulips between the house and the barn, which is not that far. Not, I couldn't carry them. My arms would have fallen off, but so just stuff like that. You a lot of problem solving, a lot of troubleshooting in that sense. So, but I'm excited for next year. We just got the preview of
that's the other upside of doing the Tulip Workshop, is that you get access to pre-cooled bulbs and some varieties that the normal brokers are not going to have. I feel like we're walking advertisements for the Tulip Workshop. We were not paid to say
I know.
but
absolutely not. But it truly was one of the best done education I've had. I really very thoughtful, and then having the access after, in the Facebook group,
even like the ability to talk to other alumni, right? Like, you and I, like being able to connect, and like we talked a lot about dry storage, right? Which is helpful, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Dry
so
storage.
there's value after the workshop continuously.
Right. And it's not the community isn't huge, so it doesn't get diluted out like other education pieces.
But it's kind of funny because like when someone like messages me, is like, I'm also a student at Tulip Workshop. You're like, yes, okay, like now we can have we can have a detailed conversation. At the same level,
Cred. Yeah, for sure, because it's like it's a specialized type of thing, and like that these people are serious, right? Like, we're, as we've mentioned, like this is my first year of my second year of growing now, but I do work in the industry and have basically my entire life. Like I have seen more nursery stock than people will in their entire life. The other place I grew up was on a tree farm. So this is an old tree farm, but I also grew up on an active tree farm. And so like, I am kind of in that world, right? And so it's nice to be with like-minded people as well that are kind of on that side of growing. And something my mom and I talk about a lot, or she is always on her high horse about, is, she is a horticulturist. She's trained in plant science. And that is something that I feel is really missing from this cut flower world. Is there's just really not that many people that have that degree and that background. And it's not saying you have to. Like I do not. I have a liberal arts degree. But there is certain things that my mom comes from a perspective, like in the whole hydroforcing. She's never gonna let me hydroforce. Never. It's never gonna happen. Like it's just never gonna happen. Just the risk, and it's all about sanitation. Sanitation's her like big thing.
I mean, it's a big it's important. Yeah,
that's a huge issue. But like no one talks about it ever. No one ever talks about sanitation, and it's like kind of frustrating because people are like, "What are the easiest, easiest cut flowers now?" It's like, oh my god, zinnias, we know. But we're kind of missing that more technical side, and it's you have to seek that out. Definitely. So all that to say, I'll get off my high horse, but it's nice to be in a workshop that is much more technical, and that they really take that technical side into consideration because it is a technical specialty or whatever.
So Haley, if people want to find you online, where can they go?
Oh yeah. So Instagram, I'm all over Instagram all the time. As a millennial, I am highly addicted. But yeah, so we are Brynhill Flower Farm on Instagram, and I quietly launched our website as well. Your website
looks awesome, by the way. I didn't realize it was just launched.
Thank you. I was getting ready for Mance, the trade show, and I was like, I need business. My mom's like, you need business cards. I'm like, thank you. And then I was like, well, if I have a website, like if I have business cards with my website on it, I need
a website. What platform did you use? Squarespace. Okay.
Squarespace. And I'm very fortunate. My friend whose wedding I did, Rachel Brown, we've been very good friends since middle school.
Got it.
So she helped me build the website. All that to say. So it was part of our deal. I did her, I did her flowers, and she's just been
I mean, it looks really,
a big
really well, because you have like a drone shot, and
my cousin Jeff, shout out. He brought it in his carry-on from Denver. I wasn't even here. I was traveling, and like my whole family.
Website, like it will be a shock to be like, oh, you're in your second year, like.
I know. But I know it's like very, and the other thing too that was really important for us is we did branding. Yes. We did a branding package, as you can see. Always.
And we've talked.
Thank you.
We've talked about this. I've talked about this. I think it's really important to invest in good branding, and especially if you're selling to florists, in my view.
Yeah, I joke that like I wanted to do branding because I wanted to take myself seriously, but that's really the truth. Is that like branding was so important to me because having that identity from the get-go, having that like as your keystone launching point is everything. Shirts, it informs. Yeah, I got the shirts, I got hats, I got stickers. It's like it's a bit much.
Yeah.
I am repping the brand all the time. I got these little stickers. We just got more stickers, but yes, so that was a huge important thing. And I was very fortunate to connect with Alessandra from the Homegrown Studio. And she was just wonderful to work with. Alessandra is like such a champion of branding. And she's also a flower farmer on the side.
Yeah.
So that was wonderful. She's great.
2023, like you can go the route of hiring a graphic designer, which you'll get, like your kind of branding, which is awesome. But it also like you've also got Canva out there with like free, right? Like there's almost no excuse not to have some sort of professional looking brand, right? Yeah.
Yes, it's never been easier,
So.
as they say. As they say. But yeah, so yeah, and that's the other thing too, I think is really important, is like we're in the right spot, the right time, we have access to the right resources, and through the collective, I'm surrounded by a really great community, and on Instagram I've connected with some other great growers. It's just been a really life-changing experience without getting too sentimental. Awesome. It's like, for a long time, I really struggled to figure out what I wanted to do and where my place was, right? And so doing all this really feels awesome. Like coming home. And that's really important. Just to share that, like, if you don't like your life, just try it out. Maybe flower farming isn't the right thing, but know that you will find that. It might take some time. It might be really uncomfortable, but it's possible. So anyway, find me on Instagram, our website. I always love to talk. I'm always up to chat. So
awesome. No.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, thank you so much. It was
I learned a lot.
A pleasure.
People learn a lot and consider growing local flowers during this time of year.
Yep. Yeah, grow local flowers. Don't be afraid to reach out to florists. Find your group of people that support you. That's important.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jessie. Bye.